Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I want to give you a full review and tell you the pros and cons of Rockschool's piano method for beginners. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so, and make sure to check the notifications bell to never miss a new video. Also, I now offer online lessons. Information is going to be in the description below. If you've never heard of this series yet, it's called Rockschool Piano Method for Beginners, and it's not obvious from the book if it's for kids or adults as well, or older beginners. It says for beginners. If you know the ABRSM and Royal Conservatoire RCM piano exams, Rockschool has done the same, and I think this was one of the first pop rock piano exams, and obviously they do other instruments as well and voice. But for piano, it's the same graded kind of system from grade 1 to grade 8. You've got scales, technical exercises and pieces, but obviously they are pop songs and not classical songs. And basically this is their officially published method book. Now, I really wanted to have a look at this for many reasons. One, because I've never seen an actual pop piano method, and second of all is because it's a new one, and most of the methods that we use are quite old, and some of them have been, a little bit kind of refurbished, but haven't been really changed too much. So I was very excited when I got the two books, but I have to say, even before the review, that this is one of those books that I love and hate at the same time. I feel like it could have been so great with the ideas that are inside, but there's so much missing, and it's just not following a very logical structure, and you'll see why in a couple of minutes when I get into the details. So the series consists of two books, book 1 and book 2, and by the end of book 2, you are learning a grade 1 piece. And apparently when you get to grade 1, you don't need any more method books. You're just supposed to go to grade 2, grade 3 and learn from the exam books. Anyway, that's the structure of the book. And I think this was published in the UK, and I'm not sure if it's available in America, but they must have something alternative, because I know the exams do exist in America as well. But anyway, this is the European UK version, and it was published by Hall Leonard. And if you're planning to do the Rockschool exams, these are the books that you should start your journey with. Now, what I'm going to do is list all the pros and all the cons, and in the very end, I'm going to give you an overview again of what you're going to learn from these books. So I'm going to start with the pros. So the first pro is that it's a very fresh kind of layout and concept, which is, I think, very well needed in the piano method world, because most of the methods we have, even the newer ones like Piano Adventures, they follow the same kind of old patterns, and the layouts and the drawings are kind of oldly worldly. But if you look at this book, it's very vivid colors, proper photographs, everything is highlighted. So it really fits in with today's kind of graphic design. It's eye-catching, it's modern, it looks really nice, and it's refreshing, as I said. So that's definitely one of the pros. The layout inside is using very big fonts, which I think is really good for a beginner. So it's very clear, you can see what the main focus is, and you've got lots of vivid colors, which again help for the information to pop out of the page. I like that in the beginner they are using actual photographs, as I showed you with the pianos, so it's not some silly 70-year-old drawings, but it's actual photographs so you can see it. And most of the little drawings as well are quite minimalist in design, so it really fits in with today's kind of graphic design trends. Now, in the end of each book, you'll see something very interesting. It's a sticker sheet. So you've got these well done piano and all these little stars that you can obviously give to younger beginners. Now, this is not something that you would do with adults or older beginners, but it's definitely something very motivational for small beginners like 6-7-year-olds, because they love that kind of award or reinforcement when they did something really well. And you don't really see this very often in other method books, so that's definitely a big pro for me. Now, the concepts are very clearly explained in the book, which is great again. Now, let me show you an example. So here, for example, you see the bars are explained, the time signature and the stave. Everything is highlighted in a way that is very easy to understand. Every piece in this book offers a teacher duet. So if you look at this little song here, if you can call it a song, there's always a teacher duet part, and there is also a download. So there's a code at the beginning of the book, and if you enter that code on the website, you're going to get backing tracks for every single song in the book. And the backing tracks are very modern, very pop sounding, a full band, and you've got 4 versions of it. There's one which shows the student's part, there's one that shows the teacher's part, there's one just the backing track, and the backing track with the student and teacher part all together, so you can hear how it sounds. I absolutely love the backing tracks. My only moan about it is that when you listen to the full backing track with the piano part is a little bit too quiet, and I think a beginner would struggle to sometimes hear what the piano is actually playing with the bass guitar and the drums. So I think the piano could have been a little bit louder and more emphasized in the context of the backing track. The books also have musical games, which again are really cool to reinforce dynamics, articulation, and note values. They're just very short little extracts, but they're in a playful form. They're quite easy to do, and again, they come with backing tracks. Another thing that the book does really well is obviously it focuses on things that are really important for pop music, such as open chords in general, how to accompany with chords, chord symbols, and it also talks about pop genres like reggae and R&B, jazz, pop in general. So you're going to have an understanding of all these different genres and how the music is different in them. There's quite a strong emphasis on syncopated rhythms, which if you've ever played pop music, you know it's abundant in pop music, and it's impossible to play nice sounding pop music without being very good at syncopating. And pop music is usually quite full of syncopated bass lines, and the book right in the very beginning encourages you to use a syncopated bass line, which is going to give you that nice kind of pop feel to your performance. Now, the last thing I want to point out with these pros, the things that I really liked, is that it also encourages improvisation. So for example, when you learn about the pentatonic scale, there is a little piece where you are supposed to improvise just using the notes of the pentatonic scale. And this is again something that's missing from most other classical or mixed piano methods. So very good for pop, because most of the times you will have to improvise in one way or another. So these are the things that are all really good and nice about the book, but I have a very long list of things that I didn't like about the book. Now, let's start with some basic things that you wouldn't think are a problem, but they actually are. The colors are amazing in the book, but whoever designed the book is putting a lot of black text on blue background quite a lot in the book, and sometimes it's really hard to read, especially when you look at it. I know you can still read it and it's not a huge issue, but if anyone spent time designing this book, why would you not pick colors that actually go together with each other and make it easier to read text? Number 2, at the very beginning of the first book, when you are introduced to finger numbers, as you can see on this little graph here, every finger number is going to be in a colored circle with a white number. Now, this is very nice when you're introduced to finger numbers, but when you actually start playing, as you can see, all the finger numbers are in these tiny circles and they're all colored, and it's extremely hard to see what's inside. Now, I don't have the best eyesight, but having very small white numbers in colored circles is just very counterproductive when you try to play music. Just a black number on white background would be so much easier to read. And again, these are such simple, small, minor things that I'm pointing out, but when you create a new method book and it's so nicely designed and has a minimalist, fresh look, then you have to think about these, that when you actually start playing from it, is it going to be easy to read it? Is it going to be easy to work from? Now, one of my other big problems is that concepts are introduced after you've been doing them for like 5 lessons. For example, there are 6 songs in the beginning of the book which are all in 4/4, and you're supposed to count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the book tells you about what the time signature is. So why would you not tell the student what the time signature is before those 10 pages, so they actually understand why they have to count to 4 and what those 2 numbers are there? If you don't want to tell them what the time signature is, then just don't put a time signature and just put random notes after each other, and they can count the note values. And this happens in the second book as well. All throughout the first book, you have to look at ledger lines, and in the second book as well. And in the middle of the second book, there is a lesson which talks to you about what is a ledger line. Like, I just don't understand. Why would you wait 80 pages to tell what a ledger line is when ledger lines are being used in those 80 pages? Another complaint that I have is that the series is very, very, very slow. So it takes around 2/3 of the book before you actually play any kind of song that has a melody, not just single notes after each other. And if you look at piano adventures, most of these methods, within 3 or 4 lessons, you're going to play hands together some kind of a nice song. And in this book, you have to go to page 46 or 47 before you actually play any kind of song. And the good thing is, even when you play single notes and very simple things with the backing track, it sounds really nice. But if you don't practice with the backing track, all you're going to hear is C, C, D, C, and that's it. So I think it's very slow, and even the second book progresses very slowly. Things are introduced very late, such as the 6/8 time, and the tie is only introduced in the second book, and most of the dynamics are introduced in the second book. So again, I have no idea if this is supposed to be for 4 or 5-year-olds, but it doesn't look like it from all the text inside and the explanations. I feel like this is supposed to be for all the beginners or adults, but the pace of it feels more like a 5-6-year-old's book. For the same reason, the music inside the book is actually quite boring until you get to the end of the first book. And I said this many times, it's very difficult to create interesting music when you only know a few notes, but playing just random notes after each other without the context of a song makes it even more boring. So unless you're using those backing tracks, I don't think any adult beginner would find this kind of inspirational, at least not until the end of the first book. But then you get into the second book, 30 pages, and then you're done, and then there's no more method book. The book doesn't have any theory sheets, it doesn't have any technical exercises, so again, it's just a lesson book. All of these are missing, and it doesn't exist, so you can't really buy a level 1 theory book, you can't really buy a level 1 sight reading or technique book, so all of these are missing. It's just a very basic introduction into musical concepts and note reading. My biggest complaint about these books is that although it's supposed to be a pop method, I didn't find any pop songs in it that I would recognize. And it's actually quite expensive compared to other methods. It's £8 for each book, so 16 for the 2. And most method books are like 60, 70 pages. These ones are only 40 pages. And that brings me to the other point, that none of the songs in the entire series have any words. And this is supposed to be a pop method with pop songs that you're supposed to sing along and you're supposed to enjoy, but it's just notes, notes, notes all the way through and no words anywhere at all, which again is something really bad for small children because they want to sing along, and for adults, again, it's not really good because they won't find any songs in them that they recognize. So this was my long list of cons, and you can see now why I love and hate the book. I feel like this book could have been such a good opportunity to bring something really new onto the market after, taking all the experience from the past, taking everything that worked really well and getting rid of the things that didn't work, putting it into a completely new kind of facade, great graphic design, modern, vivid colors, great songs in it, pop songs, very good backing tracks, but then some of the concepts are completely missed. Some of the concepts are introduced after they have been used for lessons and lessons, and very slow progress throughout the 2 books. And then once you're at the end of the 2 book, when you're barely touching stones, there's nothing else. You have to go to grade 1, and the grade 1 songs are actually quite difficult. So I feel like unless you have a teacher who can give you a lot of supporting material, these books are not going to give you anything close to enough to be able to be a grade 1 pianist by the end of the second series. The things that the 2 books cover, I made a list here. So you get basic notation, semi-briefs, minims, crotchets, and quavers. You get rests, you get ties, you get time signatures of 4/4, 3/4, 6/8, and triplets. You learn about the C, F, G major scales, D minor, A minor, and some pentatonic scales and the chords in these scales. You learn about chords and broken chords, and you learn about legato, staccato, and some very basic dynamics. And that's all you're going to cover in this book. Nothing about tempo marks, nothing about fermatas, nothing about ritenutos, slowing down, nothing about any expression marks. So very, very limited in what it's going to teach you as a pianist. So that was my opinion about this piano method by Rockschool. I had very high hopes for it, but I don't think I'm going to use it. I mean, what I would actually do one day if I have time is write a book very similar to this with a very nice, fresh graphic design look, but using some of the wisdoms that we have from the older method that worked really well throughout the years, because this is just the bare bones of piano playing. You can't really call it a comprehensive method because there's so much missing from it. If you love backing tracks and you like the vivid look, then it's certainly a nice thing to try, but bear in mind you'll need something else on the side to work with if you don't want to have huge gaps in your knowledge. If you have any more questions about these books or the Rockschool exam in general, then leave them in the comments. I try to answer them. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, subscribe for more.